Hello everyone, this is Raghu. Welcome to the Salesforce Trailhead video series. In this video, let's go ahead and build the conference management app. The target audience for this video series are the students attending the Salesforce for Youth session. So, the focus is mainly on understanding the high level concepts of the data model, creating an application, Apex classes, Circle statements, Apex triggers, and so on. So let's get started with our first module. So just in order to start the application, I hope everyone has logged into the Trailhead and just make sure that you have created an account so that like whenever you complete a specific task or stuff, you can keep track of the status of the application. So please log into the Trailhead. If you have an account, please log in either using the Salesforce ID or Gmail ID. If not, create one. So once you have logged in, just go to the projects and search for building a conference management app, or just search for a build a conference management app. You will be able to land in this page. Now, in this video, let's start with creating the data model. So, what exactly is the data model? So, the data model basically defines how we are trying to store the data in our application. So, if you see this sample example, so we are trying to build a conference management app. So, at a very high level, the app is trying to help the users to maintain a list of sessions and a list of associated speakers and map each speaker for a session. There can be multiple speakers for a session. So we will try to manage the sessions and the speakers by creating this simple app. So in order to store all the data, we will be creating a data model. So a data model basically defines what is the data that I'm trying to store and what is the type of data that I can store. So if you see here at a high level, the session data model contains created by, description, last modified by, level, owner. So all these are the fields which contain specific information about the session. The same is the case with the speaker and the session speaker. So now let's go ahead and start creating the data model. So to create the data model, all we need to do is let's go ahead and log in using, if you scroll down, there will be something called as a Trailhead playground where we can go ahead and complete all our tasks. So click on launch. So if you are already signed in, you will be able to go ahead and open the Salesforce org. So let's go up and start with creating the data model. So in the data model, we'll be creating a session object and a speaker object and a session speaker object. So the first step, creating a session object. So I hope everyone will follow all these steps. These steps are pretty much detailed. So let's follow these steps and create the objects in Salesforce. Let's go back to the Salesforce org here. So in here, this is a specific view called a lightning view. So Salesforce basically comes with two different types of views. One is a lightning and the other one is classic. So by default, if you're creating a new account, most of the accounts by default, and if not, let me go back to the classic view. If in case your account looks something like this, just see the page layouts, the color and stuff. If your org looks something like this, just make sure that you click on switch to lightning experience, because most of the Trailhead modules and even the current module that we are looking into is completely based on the lightning module packages, and it is all the screens and the UI which are given in is mostly in lightning. So let's go back and switch to lightning. And in this lightning you might land up in different types of pages. We'll try to understand this slowly. And just make sure that you click on the gear icon on the top right hand side corner and click on setup. So once you are in this page, this is the place where we can start creating our objects. The first object or the data model that we are going to create today is a session object. Okay, so the first step, once you are in the setup, I hope everyone is aware of how to land in this page. So it's basically just go ahead and click on the gear icon once again and click on setup. So once you click on setup, you come up and land in this page. So in here, let's create our first object session. So click on the object manager. So once you click on the object manager, it shows up all the existing objects which are present in Salesforce with something like a standard objects, and you can create custom objects. So anytime if you see an object with an API name like a regular name, it is kind of a C. An object API name which ends with underscore underscore C, this is like a custom object, which means like whenever it is shown with underscore underscore C at the end, which is like a custom object. So let's create our first object. So for that, click on create and click custom object. So for the custom object, the first one we are going to create is a session. So in the label, enter session. And when you say session and tab out, by default, the object name and the record name are selected by default. You can always change these names, but for now, like since we are following the trailhead, let's leave those names as is. And the plural label will be sessions. So now this is basically like we are trying to create an object and define a specific name to that object. So this is the first step. Just once you enter the label and the plural label, just click on save. There you go. We have created our first object session. So if I click on the field and relations, because to add a new uh, fields into this object. So in the next step, we are going to create some of these fields which are mentioned here. So the session date is what we are going to create, and few more things. Let me go back to this tab. So in this tab, click on fields and relationships and just make sure that you are still in the session. In that, click on fields and relationship and then click on new. And before you click on new, just make sure that you have some of the fields which were already created by for you by Salesforce. Okay, and now we are going to create the rest of the fields. So click on new. So when you are creating a field, basically Salesforce asks for, hey, what is the type of you want to store? Do you want to store a number, or do you want to store a date or a currency or an email? So all these types of data types are available for us. So for now, will be selecting the date and time. So the date and time, select next. The name of the field is session date. Out the field name, the field label will be session date. So this is something which we can see on the user interface, and this is something which we can use during querying, like when we use a sockle. In our next set of videos, we will be using these kind of field names. So the field name is auto populated, so the field label is session underscore date. So now this is something which can store a date for us. Okay, so once this is done, click on next. And in here it is asking for like establish a field level security and stuff. So for now what we do is we'll just leave all these as is by default and click on next. Page layouts also by new, because we're going at the field. Now we're creating is a description field which is a text area. So if you scroll down for the text area, there are different types of text areas. So the text area long is what we're going to select, which can allow users to enter up to this many number of characters. Okay, the text area. Next, let's say, and the visible lines are three, which means like a maximum of three lines if the data goes like for like 10, 20 lines. But still in the UI we'll be able to see just the three lines, so we can control like how many lines we want to see in this. Okay, so that's the one. So click next, and by default leave everything as is. Click next and new. We will be going to create a pick list field. So pick list is kind of a drop down field. So in the drop down field we can select or enter few values where the user can select them. So for this the data type will be a pick list. If we scroll down, pick list, so select the pick list, allows users to select a value from a list you define. So let's define a list here also. The field label will be the level. So this is basically like a for a section, like what is the session level, like is it a beginner or advanced user or intermediate user. And the next thing that we are going to do is we will be entering a set of values. For that, click on enter values, with each value separated by a new line. So just type in the values: beginner, intermediate. So once we go to the UI, once we complete and go to the user interface, we'll be able to see that there will be a drop down called level, and in which like these three fields are shown. Okay, and now leave all the other options as is and say next, next, save. So for now, if you see the session object, we have created all the required fields that are specified in the data model. So the first object creation is complete. Now let's go back and create the speaker object. So the speaker object is what we are going to create. So now for that, again, click on the object manager. Now click on create custom object. Say speaker, speakers, and if you scroll down to the record name, the record name is given as speaker name. So instead of a speaker name, we'll be giving a speaker number. So as I said, like as we discussed in the previous scenario, like we can change these names. So the speaker number and the data type this time will be an auto number. So auto number is something like we can set that, hey, this value gets incremented every time automatically whenever a new record is created. Okay, so that's an auto number. And it asks for, hey, what is the display format? Do you want to say like the example is given is a hyphen 000. So do you want to say like the number starts from a hyphen 0001, then for the next record a hyphen 0002, something like this. So we can specify any standard format. So let's follow those format given in Trailhead. So it is sp hyphen speaker hyphen in the brackets. So this is a specific format that we are following, and the starting number will be from 1. Okay, so this is a specific record name. So every record name can be like either it can be a text or an auto number, and in the auto number we had defined a specific format for this. Now click on save. So the first step, we have created a speaker object. So now just like the session object, let's go ahead and create the fields in the speaker object. So click on fields and relationship, and you see like by default Salesforce has created some fields for us. Let's go ahead and create the rest of the fields. Say next. And in here, we will be creating the first name. The first name will be of type text. So just go ahead and select the text. First name, and the length is 30 characters. Say next. Next. Just leave, I'm leaving all the default values as default. And the next field that we're doing is the last name. The last name is again a text box. And the field length is again 30. Say next. Next. Then we'll be taking an email, and just observe that there is a specific data type called email. So we'll be specifying this email so that it can validate the format and stuff. Email. Next. The next one is bio, and this field is again like text area of type long. Click on text area. This is just something like if you want to write some information related to that speaker and stuff. Next. Next. Save. So right now we have created two objects. One is a session object and the other one is a speaker object. Now let's go ahead and create the third object or the data model, which is a session speaker, which defines the relationship between a session and a speaker object. So again, go back to the object manager and creating a custom object. Again, click on create, and just to make sure that you have all the objects that you have created, just start typing in session you created. You will be able to see that hey, there is a session and the API name is session underscore underscore c, which is like a custom object. This is just for like checking like whether we have the objects which we have created or not. So now let's create one more custom object. So let's name this custom object as session speaker, plural as session speakers. So now this session speakers basically defines the relationship between those two tables. And here the record name, let's change this record name as session speaker number. And again, this text, instead of text, let's make it an auto number. And the display format is SESP session and speaker hyphen number starts from 1. Okay, save. So we have created a new object called session speaker. Now let's add some fields in this. Click on fields and say new. So in this scenario, the Salesforce has given us some options to define a master detail relationship and a lookup relationship. So at a very high level, a master detail relationship can be thought of as like a parent child relationship between the objects, as you see here, a parent child relationship. A lookup relationship is just like trying to reference to a different object to check whether if you have a relationship among those fields, you can just say like you can look up and attach them. So that's at a very high level understanding of these fields. Now in here, let's create a master detail relationship. So let's select a master detail relationship and click next. And here it asks for, hey, what is the object that you want to relate to? In this, just select session. Okay, this is the object that we have created. So click on session. Field label as session, and field name everything as session. Okay, so next. Okay, so here the related list label. So we will specify the related list label like when we are defining the SQL queries and stuff, like we can define the related list queries and stuff. So in this scenario, what we're going to do is we are going to change the related list name label here, and we will specify it as just speakers. Okay, and click on save. So now we have created a master detailed relationship in one scenario. Now let's go ahead and create one more field. Again, a new master detailed relationship, and this time it is with the speaker. Create the speaker, say next, select the speaker, field name also as speaker. Leave all these values as is by default, and in the last screen when it asks for a relationship, and here we'll be giving it as sessions. Click on save. There we go, we have created three different objects: speaker, session, and session speaker. Okay, now let's go ahead and click on the home tab. Okay, and in this setup, let's go ahead and validate all the uh, objects that we have created. Let's go to the schema builder, and it's basically like if you look for this picture, if you want to look in this specific format on the objects that you have created, let's go ahead and look for the schema builder. So just start typing in schema and you will be able to see the schema builder. Click on the schema builder link on the left hand side, and there are multiple objects which are already there. So clear out everything, select, look for session, select those things, and okay. So now if you see this, now you will be able to see the rest of the objects that we have selected. So you can say, if you cannot see this, you can just say like auto layout. It will bring up those objects that you have created. So one is the speaker object, the other one is the session speaker, and the other one is like a session object. So this is like a more of a schema view of the objects, and I can select here, show me only the selected objects, because I see all the other objects too, like I can see selected objects. So we can see the, in the schema builder can see the objects that we have created. So going back to our object manager, even in the object manager, I can always go back to the quick find box and just make sure that I can search for any specific sorry, any specific custom object that I have created or a standard object also we can search here. Okay, so that concludes this video on how to create our data model. And in this data model we will be in the next sessions we'll be able to store some data, then query from this data model. So once you are done with this, just make sure that you click on verify. Once everything is done as per this module, the verification step makes sure that if there are any errors, it specifies like, hey, what is the error that was missing. If not, like it says like assessment complete and 100 points. And so the next step what we can do is like we can click on tackle the next step and go ahead and do the next module. Okay, thanks for watching this video, and in the next video we are going to look at what exactly is an application and how to create an application. Okay, thank you for watching.